And there we go. Wonderful. All right, I'm gonna do this thing. See if there's anybody in the live stream. All right, great, wonderful. All right, welcome to this monthly non-duality Zoom with Don Garland and me. Oh, I gotta hit gut it. Thank you for coming. Please keep your microphones muted until invited to speak. This is being shared live on YouTube. So by asking a question, you are giving consent. We encourage you to raise your hand virtually, which is it's a little icon there, the hand raise. Anyway, after the brief introductions, and then you can unmute yourself and turn on your camera and ask your question. Alternatively, you can write your questions in the chat on the YouTube or in the Zoom. This is for entertainment purposes only. And please, no crosstalk. You can ask a question, you can make a comment, but don't take over the meeting. Thank you. So non-duality, what is non-duality? One without a second. You know, it's been said, just this, nothing else. See, it's already apparently happening. It's already being done. There's no doer, there's no separate individual, there's no separate existence. There's no volition, free will. There's just what's appearing. And there's nobody in that doing that. It's not happening to anyone, by anyone, for anyone. And it's a mystery. And last week I was talking about the potter, and you know, I think of the potter as the imagination. The potter is thought. And the potter creates all kinds of things out of itself. It's like a spider creating a web. You know, the spider creates this whole entire thing using nothing external, nothing apart from itself. So the web is an extension of itself. And this is this world that is created. There is no separate world. There is no independent existence. There's no objective reality. It's just what's appearing to be. What seems to be to those that it seems to be. But there's no absolute truth. There's no capital T truth. No one can know the truth because there's no one apart from the totality to see it, to understand it. There's this, what's been called cognizing emptiness. It's an emptiness that seems full. It's empty of any source, of any individuality, of any independence, but it's full of life and beauty and mystery and drama and the highs and lows. It's all there, all of it, excluding nothing, unconditional. There's nothing that can't be a part of what is. It shows up as everything. And well, that's all I got for now. So with that, turn it over to Dawn, please.
Yeah, so in some ways, it's so very little or nothing has changed, but yeah, inside, outside are gone. And it's just the immediacy of what's happening. and life goes on just as before, really. I mean, it's radically changed as well, but it's all paradoxical because really it's just normal life, but no one living it and no sense of location. So there's no one here, there's nothing, no one there. So without all those, the boundary lines, everything is seen more clearly. Perception is amplified, so the beauty and the sacred is seen. In a way, everything's transformed and everything is the same. And there's just a coming to rest where you are, which is nowhere. So it's the timeless, whereas before there was an identity that was based on future past. So this is beyond this, beyond the mind. So it can't be understood. And the heart of it is love. So everything is love. There's only love and there's no division. So the intimacy is restored to life, and that's what lends beauty to everything. And so it's coming home is a good way of putting it. Everywhere you are, it's home. There's no strangers, there's no strangeness. You know, so coming to rest. And it's very, very simple. It sort of simplifies life in a way. So there may be drama appear, but you're not gaining identity from that. It's you're living life as it unfolds, you know, moment by moment. It's not even moment by moment. So it takes the sting out of life, it takes the sting out of death. And so it's nicer in that sense. And as an end to suffering, as in living from that. And you will probably have had moments of this, maybe not even recognized, but you could probably experience it as a child, or so maybe a memory of that when this is seen. And it can blow your mind totally. So there's no mind ever, or the mind is slowed, but certainly it's changed. And that's kind of about all I want to say about that for now.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and join right in.
Hi, Dawn and Walter.
Hi.
Thanks for having me on. Dawn, just something you said about the love there. I'm always curious about that, and I think Walter last week mentioned that there's this sense of after the awakening, there's a sense of love that he felt as well. Could you say more about that? I'm not going to say, can you explain it? Because it's not something that can be grasped with the mind, but could you say more about why there's love, or what that love is?
Well, that's all there is. I mean, it's unconditional love. So there's this radical acceptance of everything as it is, as it appears. There's a sense of in loveness with everything, like, because the intimacy is just there. So everything's kind of seen in perfection in a way. So could be in love with a glass of wine, you know, the person you're talking to. It's just an in loveness. It's just because there's no, you know, like in falling in love, that boundary line goes, doesn't it? So you see yourself in the other. So it's kind of like that in a sense, that division, that whatever is gone. So it's just that's all there is, and that's what you are. Like it was always there, but it, you know, maybe it wasn't accessed, but yeah, so it includes everything as well. So does that answer your question? I don't know.
Yeah, it does. It's so hard to follow up on that because I don't know the right words to use. But I mean, is there any sense in which everything is loving you? You said, you felt that you could love the glass or the chair and everything. Is there any sense that the love is coming back at you in a way from the universe?
It's just, oh, it's not like it's loving you. It's not doing anything. It's just love. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's just a sense of intimacy, the intimacy that's there. It's not doing anything. It's just what is. It's in everything. I mean, you're not separate from that. Have you experienced, I mean, if you had a experience of that, or
I haven't certainly or anything remotely like that, but I had a kind of a very minor experience, but it was in fact a kind of result of something a therapist or a counselor suggested, an exercise that I do, and love was very much involved with that. But and it was profound. But what you guys are talking about seems so much more amazing than that in a way, and something quite uncommon.
Well, it's quite. I mean, it's quite subtle in a sense too. It's just what's there. It's not. There's no longing in it. It's the end of longing because it's already realized. There's nothing. It's not separate. So it's just what's there. It's very simple. It's just who you are. You're not anyone, but so it's just what is really. Yeah, it's just, and it, like when you feel intimacy, it's just that at homeness as well. I mean, you could call it that too, like coming home, just that sense of, where you are is home. It's in everything. It's seen. I mean, it can be visually seen. It's in the stillness. It's there. It's, it's hard to describe, but it does take the sting out of life. That's the fullness, isn't it? So it's what's being sought, I guess. I don't know where you've gone. But interested to know your exercise you did, because everybody will be doing it.
It was oh, can you hear me? Yeah, it was a self-reparenting visualization exercise. So you had to sort of imagine yourself, your younger self at a moment when they were in great distress, and your current adult self approaching them and comforting them with, presence and love and being proud of them, etc. And it was such a simple thing, but it had such a profound effect that it just made me open to the possibility that all sorts of other transformations are possible, whereas before I was so skeptical that anything was possible at all.
Oh wow, okay, so it's that's a real game changer for you then.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah. I don't know what else. Definitely, yes.
Oh, brilliant. That sounds brilliant.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it certainly wasn't this. That's the thing, though. It wasn't this kind of non-dual thing. I'm very much still prey to sort of worries, anxieties, and sort of thoughts running away with themselves, and fears and stresses, and ego, and all this sort of other stuff. But it just made me aware that some profound changes can happen.
I mean, glimpses too. I mean, in that moment, I don't know what it was like in that moment. Was it just a moment, or was it a few minutes, or do you remember? Or
it was it was a few moments, but what was weird was the lasting. I mean, there was like a throbbing headache of euphoria that was happening as well for like a week or so. And it was actually painful. The euphoria was so painful.
Like physically, or you mean physically?
Yeah, it was a physical throbbing headache it was literally from euphoria for a few days or a week, and then in the moment, though, the immediate effect of it, I even then I don't think I lost a sense of self as such. It's just that it was a huge weight had been lifted, or some kind of self hatred had been melted away to some extent, and there was just pure love. I felt pure love and joy was radiating out of me. It was really I never expected. I was so skeptical even of therapy and everything. I was skeptical of everything. And
Right.
then this
Okay.
one simple thing happened, and I just wasn't expecting. I didn't have any expectations of it. In fact, I was very pessimistic about it, and it was profound. So, I don't think it was non-dual. I can't be sure. Maybe for a fraction of a second, but yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a split second. It can be hard to recognize things as well. But so, was there anything around the heart? Like, it sounds also like a heart opening kind of experience. Because you said like it was physical to like the lifting, a kind of lifting, maybe.
It was in the moment. It was like a kind of sensation bubbling up from deep within me, like from my gut or something. It just bubbled
Okay.
up from there and then took over my entire body. And then for some days afterwards, occasionally I would have this throbbing euphoria that actually was giving me a headache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the mind, was it quite quiet in that, or were you excited?
There was a lot of excitement, but there was much less chatter. I think some of the chatter's come back, the negative self-talk and the chatter has come back to some extent, but it has definitely, there's been some change. There's been some definite change. I mean, I wouldn't have come onto this and started out, even talking to people was so difficult before. And now, I'm doing this. I would never have dreamed of doing this, for example.
Yeah, it's funny when an exercise actually works like really like that. I mean, on a profound level, like it does happen sometimes, but very often it's much more normal experience. I mean, that's altered state, isn't it? It's something happened there, something fell away. Like that's exciting. It really is. No, I'm really glad for you, because it's so easy to just step up yourself, isn't it? And not take yourself seriously. And then, so I guess therapy will change for you now as well. So
yeah. Thank you so much. I'll let someone else speak. Sorry, I've gone off about me, but
oh no, it's really enjoyable. I love hearing it. It's exciting. It's good stuff.
Thank you.
I know Chet asked about the love. It just seems to be there's a love of being. There's a beingness, and what was seen was that, and you always hear seen by no one, because it's a recognition that the walls and the tables and the chairs, the computers, all the other people, it's all arising from the same no thing. And that seems to be the love. It's not something loving something else, or something feeling loved, or something loving something else. It's just a love of being. There's this isness. There's this apparent existence. And no one's existing and no one's being, but there is a being. And that's where the love is. I don't know how to describe that. It's just a love to be. And all apparent things are this one beingness, this one apparent appearance. And it's beautiful. I mean, that's where the beauty is. The fullness, the emptiness, the void, the lack of duality is beautiful, but also that fullness comes in, and it's rich, and it's, I don't know what else to say. It's just to see that, wow, look at this existence. Look at what's happening. Nobody knows what it is. and there's no one to know what it is. But it's a miraculous play. So that's the love. It's just an awe. It's the unicity and oneness of all apparent things. How can that not be love? There's not this thing over here at odds with this thing over here. It's just all arising. The grass and the sun, and the birds and the people. That's love. All imagined problems are still love. It doesn't have to feel like love, it just is. So any other questions from the Zoom or in the YouTube? Don't be shy. Jump right in.
Yeah, there's kind of wow to it as well, but very subtle because seeing things for the first time. So it's like you've never really, if you see a glass or a tree or whatever it is you're looking at, it's just mesmerizing. So there's a sense of absorption in that as well. So it does have a feeling state to it as well. That's sort of, when you're in a flow state maybe, but it's more, almost more womb-like than that. Not that I remember what the womb is like, but just a slight subtle drunkenness can accompany that, which is, it's almost like, mainlining stillness or something. It's, there's a feeling aspect to it, but it's not what you think it is. But it's sort of, and the more you're kind of where you are, the deeper that can be. So it's very absorbing. It's very beautiful in that sense. It's almost like life in slow motion. It's without the time, like in being timeless, it's, complete rest, obviously, because there's no looking ahead, there's no looking back, there's just this beingness, and which is absolute fulfillment, and moment to moment to moment. So yeah, it really takes your breath away. Initially it's just, it's mind-blowing in such a subtle way. It's just really beautiful.
Can I just jump in again if there are no other questions?
Please do. Feel free.
I just wondering, Dawn, you've mentioned integration a lot in some videos, I think, or online, and it sounds, I don't really understand it, but it sounds like after an awakening, there's still work to do. Is that sort of what it is?
Well, not around the awakening itself. It's just that some psychological stuff, the patterns in particular can remain the same, and there may not be the impetus to do anything about that. There may not even be the recognition, because if there's been repression there, repression kind of means that, you're unconscious of what you're doing. You don't see that you've been repeating since you were a kid, these patterns, the same kind of relationships, maybe toxic relationships, that can easily continue. And maybe because the sting has gone out of life, that it's actually can be easier to continue that. So you might be psychologically healthier, which you will be, because you're going to be more grounded. There's a kind of groundedness to this. But if it's not seen, if you don't actually know what you're doing, you may continue. So you may remain kind of stuck in maybe a pattern of, I don't know, working in a place you don't want to be working in, or being in a relationship you don't want to be in. That could go on indefinitely, maybe in a more flow kind of way, because, in fact, it could even get worse in the sense of you're really open, and you might end up just being the absorber, and a sponge for all the aggression in a relationship, or all the kind of negativity, just because the mind stuff tends to go, so there's less of the repetitive thinking that goes on, so that tends to fall away. So in a sense, what's not seen, why would it be seen? So but you may not seek things out. I mean, energetic experiences can arise, and sometimes repressed memories might come up, stuff like that, if you get energetic experiences later on. But not everybody gets that. So if you get that, then you might want therapy, or you might want to talk about stuff and kind of change, because it doesn't teach you how to live, or maybe what you haven't worked on. It depends what it is. Everybody's got their issue, don't they? Most people do have something. It doesn't make you able to stand on your own 2 feet. It doesn't make you recognize what fairness looks like. It doesn't make you have a better relationship picker. Some people talk about a relationship picker. You might, instead of going for a normal sort of worldly type toxic person, you might go for a spiritual toxic person. You don't know what you're doing necessarily. So I mean, sometimes just having good friendships, you can recognize stuff, but you may not even know what that looks like. So it's good to have someone to reflect back to you. You may not need, if there's no problem there, it's unlikely you're going to seek like therapy or anything. And I'm not advocating that, but I'm just saying that if trauma sometimes seems to be able to survive this. So if there's narcissistic injury there, and someone has a kind of fight response, and they go straight to fight, as in you criticize them only very slightly, and they'll go into a rage or something, that can continue. So also the kind of polar opposite, the fawn, someone who goes into a fawn response, who's very supplicating. When they're under threat, they become very agreeable and try to do everything to please to appease the other. I mean, that can continue. It may be seen through, but it may continue. You may not realize why you're doing that. And it just depends. It's all very individual, this, in terms of that. But there seems to be an increase in awareness, increase in sort of personal awareness of realizing more, because you can see the mind, when the mind is there, like before thought might be more or less unconscious. There may be some consciousness of it, but there's a lot more that's, that you're seeing now inside and outside. So, but you may not be able to contextualize that. You might see it, you might know it's wrong, but you may not understand it and fit it into, you may not have joined the dots. So you might see somebody being toxic and kind of know that, but not be able to articulate it and not recognize it as something that has always appeared in your life. It's things like that. It's joining the dots tends to free us up from patterns, or at least give us the opportunity to make a new choice. Not that anybody's making a choice, but so it's just stuff like that. And so in a sense, I mean, the awakening itself, I mean, it doesn't seem to cause a rupture as far as I, know from everybody else. It's because that's so natural, and like I say, it's got a groundedness to it. So, there's probably less in a kind of normally, someone who's not particularly pathological, to be less, more responding and less reacting in that, because there's more space to reflect before acting. So yeah, it's good. It's good if this stuff comes up and it's seen, because you get an opportunity then maybe to do the stuff that you wanted to do that maybe you haven't self-actualized. Like, so you may have had ambitions when you were a little child. I don't know, like or not ambitions really as a kid, but qualities, things that you were good at, things that you like doing, and you never pursued them, or maybe as a teenager. So because of pathology, because of the messages your parents, your caregivers gave you, like you're not good enough, you whatever, like there can be a subtle sense of that left as well, or just to playing that out without thinking about it. So yeah, it's like the more you bring to consciousness, to the light, the more possibilities kind of open, and the more you can change your lifestyle and relationships to kind of fit in with this, like sort of update, if you like, just to modernize their whole. It seems like a waste of time. Not a waste of time, but like if I look back at myself, I kind of wish I knew what I realized when energetic experience showed me my own patterns, which was quite a few years after my own awakening. So kind of held me back in certain ways,
It's really interesting. I always felt that your conditioning, your whatever your traits and your psyche, if you want to put it that way, was before awakening, won't entirely leave you. But it's interesting to hear you say as well that it might actually you might become more of a sponge for negativity. You were saying something like that as well, that it might actually damage you. That's quite. I hadn't heard that before, I don't think. After an awakening, you might end up sort of damaging yourself more because you aren't so maybe feisty or fighting back.
Well, yeah, but it might, you may not realize it because you may not be suffering so much from it as well. Like, but the body kind of knows what's going on, even if you're like in a peaceful state. There can be cortisol in the body. It's so paradoxical, this. So, I can recognize that if maybe I go through, I've been through a crisis recently, and the mind will be still, there'll be nothing going on, feeling at peace, but the body is tense, and I could feel the cortisol in the body, and the body won't sleep, and it won't do what you want it to do. So it's kind of hard, because the story of the life story, and it's all in the body. Everything's kind of held in the body, in a sense, the truth of the life lived, which of course no one was living, but all of that's kind of stored there. And so if you ignore it mentally, it's still there physically, because that's where the unconscious lives. That is the story. The story is the unconscious in a way. So,
is it just the conscious mind that's quieter then? Do you think the unconscious mind and body are still sort of fizzing away under the surface after an awakening?
Well, I mean, I don't know what you mean by, unconscious mind doesn't mean a lot to me. Like, so there's either thought, there's not thought, like, and when there's no thought, it's even juicier in a way. Like, there's nothing in the way of just what is. That's the most peaceful state, really. But still everything, like there's trauma, it's still in the body. It's, so I think it's just paradoxical like that. Like, so because a lot of non-dual speakers talk about, it's just a story, what you can say about your life, just a story, but the story lives. That story, real or not real, it's ultimately not real, but it's it constitutes the self. I mean, it's in those cells. It's that, you know, your integration can be shown in, apparently, in the way you can talk about your own history and sympathize with your history. I mean, that's a sign of maturation. And some people just don't go there because they hear the non-dual message and think, well, that's not important then. But it kind of, I mean, that's how we relate, isn't it? I mean, we relate from story. We also relate from beingness as well, like just that. And I think people can access it to some degree, you know, at times, maybe when you're really close with somebody, you know, that just being with somebody, that beingness is there all the time after awakening, and you're relating from that as well. But we share the story, don't we? We share what's going on, and that has, you know, that's, yeah, as you say, the conditioning it runs deep. It really does, and a lot of it can be blown. I mean, in every case it'll be different. What's fallen away, you know, defenses falling away. Obviously, if the heart's defended and defenses against intimacy, a lot of those kind of defenses can just fall away by the heart opening, never mind anything else. It's and the acceptance of the story, then, like the sting going out of, you know, I was bad, I was good, I failed, I was successful. It just neutralizes that in a sense, and there's much more compassion for a life, which just seems to be much more beautiful. You know, it's like watching your own movie. It's a return to innocence. It's because we're all trying our best, aren't we? Generally speaking, or our worst, or whatever it is, but we're all doing something. And so it becomes, you know, and once you kind of get the patterns, they become fascinating. I find them really fascinating. My own history, anybody else's history, I just find it fascinating, because what we do and what moves us, what doesn't, you know, because it all comes from emotion. It comes from the body, doesn't it? What moves us one way rather than another way. And it can be very mysterious as well, when there's like Kundalini energy that just drives you forward in a direction you couldn't have foreseen, or desire can do that. So it can be mysterious as well, or the blue, what moves us or what comes in. So I don't know.
So, sorry, can I ask one follow-up question to that as well? I know I'm asking all the questions. Just tell me to shut up if I need to stop.
No, nobody else is asking. So.
All right. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, if I see another hand, I'll let you know. Don't worry.
Okay,
about
good.
it. Yeah. Keep going. Yeah.
So I just wondered, I mean, it sounds like, because everyone has unique conditioning and stories, life stories, does that mean that that sort of explains why people seem to be different or behave differently after an awakening? No two awakenings seem to be the same, but maybe the actual sense of the oneness is the same, but the way people behave is still different. Is that the case? Do you think the sense of the oneness is the same, even though people might react differently, if you like?
The sense would be the same, but there can be different depths. I mean, to the awakening and in one awakening, because I mean, so at times here there's more absorption than at other times, you know, like I think I mentioned before, like when there's opportunity, there's nothing to be done, you know, then there's more dropping into this. There's it seems to amplify the piece, and some people get no mind chatter whatsoever, so there's more kind of depth there, or some people see more of the aliveness, you know, and you know, there's the occasional person who just can't function, it's so far gone. And you know, initially it can be very like that. It's so deep, it can normalize over time. So I think it you know, that depth of it can certainly vary from person to person as well. You know, and some people obviously are just more able to articulate it better, just because they can, or maybe because it's happened in a big bang moment. So the before and after, if there's a radical difference between before and after, then it's kind of easier to speak about maybe as well. So, you know, and you can't really gauge someone's awakening, and you know, only really they can. And if you see someone in the front of the room, I mean, you've no idea what they're like behind the scenes. You could be beatific in front of a camera, like, but you don't really know. It's very convincing because we're always duped by appearances anyway. I think after awakening, it can be easy to be still sucked into that, because we're always judging by, appearance, unless you really, really have got rid of a lot of repression and you're not really falling for that, but we can still fall for it nevertheless, so, I don't know. Does that answer your question? I don't know.
Yeah, it does actually raise another question, which is, you talked about there can be degrees of it. I mean, that almost sounds almost controversial, but do you think there can be degrees of awakening then?
I don't mean degrees as in it's either realized or it's not. I think that's true to say. It's not like, so it's seen. So the emptiness and fullness, nothing and everything, it's seen, and and it's abiding or it's not abiding. I don't think there's any degrees in that, but it's just, there is a sense of which, like you hear of samadhi states. Well, the samadhi state can be after awakening. A samadhi state can be really, varying degrees of like, I mean, I always refer it to like drunkenness. You have 1 glass of wine, you have 10 glasses of wine. There's a difference. It's kind of like that. So sometimes it can be really, really deep. And sometimes it's more normal. But the constriction never comes back. The sense of a person never comes back. So even if the mind is, kind of more normal and something awful is going on or whatever, there's, it's still just the oneness, but there may be more kind of absorption in a state where you're sitting on a park bench and the mind, as anyone find, I mean, a lot of people find that in nature, that things calm down. So there's, it seems to love that. It seems to love, we try to emulate that to create it, don't we? So retreat conditions where, in a retreat, there's no stimulation from outside. It's everything kind of simplified. There's nothing to stimulate the mind. Those conditions do seem to deepen it after awakening, as well as give rise to more energetic states and maybe glimpses. I mean, there doesn't seem to be any way to initiate the big bang moment where it all falls away forever kind of thing. But it kind of makes, intuitively, it makes sense, doesn't it? It's just, what we do. I don't know. Initially, I mean, there's a honeymoon period. I think, I mean, it like I say, it varies from person to person, but the absorption can be really, really strong. And I think that's, you hear people, and I'm one of them, like spent a couple of years just sitting on park benches or sitting on their balcony, or because the beauty is so, it's just breathtaking. And there's something about skyscapes and trees and nature that is, it's felt everywhere. It's felt indoors, outdoors, but there's something most beautiful about outdoors in this as well, like, which makes sense,
It sounds so captivating and lovely and desirable. It's just on the question of samadhi, then there's samadhi states. I did wonder about that. Do you have any sense of why some people seem to have that deep absorption into samadhi and almost paralysis?
Yeah, I mean, there's can be a difference between someone who gets this and there's like a Kundalini awakening is sparked off at the same time. Maybe there will just be a Kundalini experience at the time of awakening. So you might feel energy, massive energy go up the spine, and then an opening into this. But if it's an ongoing Kundalini awakening, I think that because it's associated with bliss states and samadhi states. So maybe if that's present, because a Kundalini awakening is different than a Kundalini experience, because that's a one-off. The Kundalini awakening tends to last for life. So there'll always tend to be periods of bliss state and energetic phenomenon, whatever that is. So maybe more in that. And but also it's just mysterious. I mean, like Ramakrishna had these unbelievably kind of gone states, didn't he? Apparently needed people to kind of walk him around. He couldn't, I don't know. Yeah.
I heard that UG Krishnamurti also may have had samadhi occasionally as well, or quite often.
Oh, did he? All right, okay.
Mm.
I wasn't so aware of that. I know, like, around his awakening, he had a lot of sort of peculiar kind of energetic phenomena going on, like the skin lighting up, the sort of luminescence of the skin, the room, I think the room lighting
Yeah,
up, and then
yeah.
experience of death, and yeah, some strange phenomenon.
Apparently, he also would sink into. He used to call it I'm sinking," and he would sink into samadhi and just, or be almost paralyzed. And if nobody came and talked to him or anything, he would just be stiff or lying on the bed or something. And then when he got up, he'd be absolutely in pain, because I think the whole body had just kind of didn't need to function, so just almost stopped functioning, and he would be gone for hours. And
Oh,
so I
right.
think he had that. I
Yeah,
think he
yeah.
had that.
I'm not aware of people experiencing pain afterwards. I mean, I've never experienced that, but who knows? I mean, I don't know. He was an interesting one, wasn't he? So
Yes.
who knows? Yeah, don't know what to make of UG. I find him very likable.
Yeah.
There's something very childlike about him. But I'm sure he was a
I,
nice.
I've I think he was definitely a handful for his for certain followers of
Yeah, well,
his.
maybe he was just on when he was on, and like when they went, he was quiet. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah,
That's what he said. I think he said,
all right.
when no one's around, he said, there's no demand for me to speak or think, and I just can't tell the difference between a chair, a person, the wall, and he was just totally gone in this samadhi, so-called samadhi, apparently.
Oh yeah, he lost. Yeah, he couldn't identify objects. I remember that the
Hmm.
awakening. I mean, some people get that. I had a little bit of that, but not total. I think Byron Katie had that as well, not recognizing things, not
Hmm.
knowing what anything was. Well, is this a cup? What is this? What am I doing? Eating something? What is this?
Hmm.
Like, so that can happen as well, and that can be obviously that's pretty disorientating. But you don't hear of that too frequently, I don't think. Yeah, but he is a weird one anyway, wasn't he? 6 years he was homeless, and he went around learning off license plates of cars and shit, or was it numbers?
Yes.
Phone numbers. Was phone numbers you learn off by heart and shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Hmm.
know. But he seemed very articulate when he did speak. So it's
That's what really struck me about him, and he had a whole theory worked out about what it all was as well, and he's very articulate about it. It's very interesting to hear, and quite funny sometimes as well. So yeah.
yeah. Uh,
We did have a question here in the chat. Do you guys do much releasing of emotions or just sitting with whatever was arising in the body? Or did that apparently happen? So sitting with whatever is arising, does that mean anything to you, Dawn?
Oh, I mean the difference between feeling and emoting. So feeling is sitting with whatever emotion is there, not judging it, just kind of metabolizing it through feeling, like energetically, and emoting is expressing it in some way. So just if you're angry, just talking that out or expressing it. Yeah, so it's moving it out of the body through an active kind of process. Both are very, very good. One without the other is not so good. No, I mean, I don't, my emotions don't tend to stay around for very long. In my case, they tend to go out pretty damn quickly. So there's no point, much point in feeling. I do emote, I share, I have my close friends, I talk about stuff. I love talking about stuff, it's good fun. They talk about stuff. And so it's, yeah, I'm a big fan of, verbal ventilation, expressing what, more kind of talking things through. I find that very useful, but they're both great, but one without the other is not so good. But yeah, so what about you, Walter? Do you?
See, sitting with whatever. I mean, I have done that. It's been a while. Yeah, I can't say at the moment I have any practices or routines whatsoever. I did find value in that. I can say that. Well, the next question is, does privacy feel possible? Are either of you ever alone with yourself as if you are your own company? Jack, if you want to join the Zoom, the link is right there. I'm not sure I understand the question. Do you?
How much are you ever alone with yourself if you're your own company? Oh, like in just like at home being by yourself is I don't know if you mean that really. I mean the sense of aloneness and there's no need for the other. I mean that's there, or there's a sense of completeness on your own or with people. It doesn't make any difference really. Because there's no sense of lack, so in a sense that's gone. Although at the same time, yeah, so there's not a neediness, but it's quite healthy to also reach out if you're feeling shit or something. You can feel shit and be at home with yourself, like it's endlessly paradoxical, this. So it's okay to be alone and feel good, or be alone and feel neutral, because there's a lot of emotional neutrality in this as well. So there's no kind of state, no good, no bad, just an okayness that seems to be more prevalent than anything else. But yeah.
Oh, Jack joined the Zoom.
Like
So
it's endlessly paradoxical, this. So
oh,
it's okay to
there you are, Jack.
feel good, be alone, and feel
Somebody's got to
emotional
turn off
neutrality.
their, let's see, is that you, Jack?
No kind of
I gotta, oh, there it is, gone. Okay, good. All right, fire away, man. Tell me about your privacy question. Jack joined Zoom. So oh, I gotta find where this noise is coming from. Sorry. Some external stuff happening. Seems good. I can't see it. Okay, we're good. Go ahead, Jack. You got audio there? You got fire away, man.
Wait, I'm getting a
Tell
loop.
me about your privacy. Yeah, you are getting a loop.
I don't mind the loop, but I'm hearing it twice. So
Yeah, it's messing with my head though. You don't have two things going at the same time? Do you Zoom and YouTube or something?
oh, you know what? Try
That's
that.
that's usually what that is. You gotta close YouTube.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Sorry, that was me.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
My question was just, do you hang out with you as if you're a persona when you're alone? Like, do you have an interactive relationship with you?
Hmm.
Like when
Yeah.
you like you were saying with Yuji, when Yuji's alone and no one's talking to him, nothing's happening to him, apparently, from what he was reporting. Well, is that your experience? Or when you're alone, do you have like jokes with you? Do you have intimacy with you? Or are you dead to yourself, so to speak?
I'll say, no, I'm not dead to myself. Yeah, I have a very lively interaction with myself, apparently. Yeah, there's a lot going on. A lot of dialogue and conversing with myself.
Right. Because I
Yeah.
get a lot of that, and that's new for me. That wasn't always my life, but then it changed, and so I just wonder if that happens for other people, that they become relational alone.
Oh, what was it like before?
Oh, I was just reacting to real people, but I
But
didn't
when
have a
you-
split.
But when you were alone, what was it like?
Oh, it was like nothing was happening.
Just complete silence.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't relating to anything. I might be writing, but I wasn't like, now I can, hey, how's it going? Good. How are you? What do you want to do today? I don't know. Like I can have an interactive relationship. which is fun, but I just don't know if I'm just don't know where to put it into the whole conversation. So that's why I wanted to ask.
What do you think, Don?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it varies. I mean, sometimes alone, like, it just seems kind of weird, like the nothing being here, like not weird, but it can flag up more, like, but yeah, the dialogue or whatever, like, but that can be more stark. But yeah, I mean, but yeah, there can be what you're saying, interacting the self. Yeah.
That's cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Nice to see you.
Thank you for the invitation to join you.
Yeah, it's funny. This seems to be, the thought arising, and then sort of the hearing of that thought, and then the thought about the thought, and then it's just layers and layers, and sometimes the thought arises that, wow, that thought has created this whole scenario or this whole like world, like all these thoughts are just creating this whole world that I live in. And it seems obvious that there's no authority. Like these thoughts don't have any authority. They're not the ultimate truth.
Mm.
So if it says, oh, I think this about this, like oh, but I don't know where all this sounds like a lot of dualism going on there. It's just like all these voices conversing with each other.
Yeah, that's why I had the question.
Yeah.
Because I feel like in non-duality, there's this idea that there's not a person, but my experience was there suddenly were a lot more people.
Yeah, none of them are me, or all of them are me, either
Sure.
one.
Yeah, I don't know what that means in the end, what the me, the self, the idea of me or the no me, I don't know what that is.
I think thought is more interesting after awakening because it's
Mm.
not that ruminative stuff. It's actually quite a delight. Like, I mean, most of the time, like, I wouldn't want to be without it all the time. Like, whereas initially I did, I loved that because it had always been a pain, like, and the exhaustion, it did feel like a drain of energy. But yeah, I mean, it's creativity, isn't it? I mean, it can be negative too, but it generally doesn't seem to be much of that. Like, I guess that varies. I don't know. I'm not speaking for everyone. That's a mistake with this as well. I think speaking for everyone, because it's such bullshit, isn't it? Everybody's different, I think. And it doesn't stay the same. It's constantly changing. And you think it's one way and something happens that's like bullshit, I don't know, but
Yeah, no. I appreciate your perspective, both of you, because you seem to offer slightly different angles into the riddle. Like that you'll talk about Kundalini, Don, is really useful. And that you're, Walter, that you're solidly into this. I don't know. I just they're like yin and yang, and it's very helpful to listen to you both.
do you get any of the energetic stuff?
Yeah, well, there was a while where it felt like I was crawling out of my forehead.
Like,
that pressure that's in the center of the head for.
Oh
like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
Yeah, like that. It's all like you say. I kind of am a fan of all of it. I don't at this point try to make sense of it too much, but it's fantastic.
I try to make sense.
What are you using to try to make sense of it?
The energetic stuff. What kind of experience it is, and it's fascinating. Or does anything change after this? Like, because some of them do, and then some things just don't. But I love the ones that do, even if they're negative, like, and show you what what a shit kind of life you've been leading. I love that. It's interesting.
Mm.
You don't.
Yeah, that your fascination with it is helpful.
Do you not have fascination with it then?
No, I do. I just, the non-duality community, the way I encountered it originally is there was so many rules
Oh
and
yeah.
how you're supposed to talk and what you're allowed to say and not allowed to say, that I am kind of like, I'm indoctrinated into that world a little bit, to where I check myself when I'm trying to have a regular conversation with people, especially in this community. It's just like, why can't we just talk normally?
You,
So anyway, I appreciate that you do a lot, both of you.
but it's weird the way it gets in, because you don't, like, why shoot it? Do you know what I mean? Like, but it does, it conditions your thinking, and even afterwards, and then you're trying to fit your experience in with that, and you're not allowed to think certain things. It's like thought police. It's really,
It's annoying because it's totally, like you said, everyone's so different. So it just limits something that is actually unique anyway.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I think you can get caught at that at any stage, can't you? Because like maybe it's just always trying to get in. It's always like freeing yourself from that conditioning seems to be a perpetual thing, almost like.
Mm.
And I love that, because I'm really into the shadow stuff and expressing that. And it's like, fuck you, I'm not staying boxed. Do you know, like I just want to break free of it, like, and you realize something, it's like, cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you need other people. I think it's also like other people give you permission as well. Like it doesn't all come from inside, like that. Is that interdependency thing, which is kind of humbling as well. Like, like in any therapeutic group, it takes someone to admit something and everybody else can admit it. It's just great when somebody goes to the depths and says something really shit about, they think really shit about themselves. Just opens up a whole new conversation. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know what this question means, but it says, who's Sam Gold?
I don't know.
Maybe it's like who's John Galt?
That's from All Is One. I don't know what the question means. All is one, if you want to explain. Nope. The awkward silence of nobody actually being here. I don't know what that means either.
Well, yes. I mean, silence can still be awkward. There'd be an awkward silence. It's peaceful at the same time. It's another paradox. Because I would say this is an awkward silence. It's awkward and it's not. But
Well, that's a good example of what I'm trying to say. Is like silence is just silence. But you need a thought to make it awkward or not awkward or peaceful or blissful or whatever. So, I just seems to me that nothing is until we have a thought about it. Thinking makes it so. And like we were saying, we can have all this chatter going on, but it's all made up.
But I think a silence can also be awkward when there's no thought. I mean, and then there's within that, you can be awkward without mind, right? You don't need a mind to feel awkward, like. But it's stillness anyway. I mean, it's all stillness.
So you can have a feeling without a thought, like I don't know what an awkward feeling is unless you label it awkward. That's the part I get confused about.
All right, okay. No, I
Like independent of any thinking or labeling.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, like all sorts of reactions. But I know what that is, but you don't need thought to know, like you don't need thought to know what that is. I mean, but yeah, you wouldn't. And yeah, and it can be just awkward. I suppose it doesn't, but you don't expect it to be any other way, so it's fine too, just being awkward. I mean, I'm a shy person, so I'm used to feeling awkward.
Yeah, me
But I'm
too.
okay with it. I'm okay with feeling awkward. Kind of.
Well, let's sit in the awkwardness together.
Mhm.
How do you keep characters? That's what Allah's One wants to know.
Hmm.
They keep themselves, don't they? There's no getting rid of character. Like it just comes out, doesn't it? It's just out of nowhere. Doesn't change much. That's the thing that doesn't change, does it? I don't
The
know.
persona, the mask.
I don't know about the persona. I mean, I don't think I ever had much of a persona. I was so shit at personas. I think that's why I was failed so much in life. I used to take other people's personas as, wow, that person is really real. Like I didn't realize it was all that suffering going on behind all these personas. Like, but so I don't know. I mean, but the character, I mean, just like those traits, like the way you are, like I don't know, just your personality stuff. I mean, the style. But then some people say they become more extroverted, they become more introverted, those kind of things. And maybe you become, I don't know, maybe your attachment style changes. Maybe instead of insecure, anxious, avoidant, or whatever, you become more secure. I don't know. Or maybe you don't. I think, yeah, I don't know. I think some people stay avoidant actually, and they're okay with that actually, sort of thinking about it.
What does that mean, avoidant?
Avoidant attachment style is they sort of prefer to not get too close, get kind of anxious when, they're more sort of anxious about, they're preoccupied is where you're more worried about what the other one is doing. And so avoidant is, they tend to more live alone. And, secure attachment is you're more able to kind of handle the ups and downs of a relationship and get close and, but it was all done in like they did studies on children and anxious kids, like when their mums left them alone, they would they would have no reaction to their mums going off, but actually their cortisol levels went through the roof more than the preoccupied ones. So they couldn't, so actually they look like they don't need the other, but they actually really do need the other, so it's interesting as well. But
We have another question. Would you say all me is thought, mind chatter? I have about 10,000 me's then. Well, I mean, I guess it depends who you talk to, but the me has been defined as a thought, idea, a contracted sense in the body. And there's all kinds of pointing out instructions to see through this and all that. None of that ever did much as far as, so any description doesn't do much, I don't think. But, I went through this whole process, like cutting off my arms and legs. Am I still me? If you give me a lobotomy, am I still me? Like, when do I stop being me? You know? Because I'm apparently not the body, not the mind. Well, what am I? And I just see it as I am this. I'm this expression. I'm these words. I'm this, whatever thoughts are arising. I'm this current apparent reality. This is me. But there's no solid fixed me. Oh, yes. Me, just a meme. Okay. What do you think,
Well,
Dawn?
so there's the thoughts, there's also the emotions, and that's there's also the stuff that you can't talk about that's acted out. So maybe you act aggressively and you don't really realize it, and you think that's not me, but it kind of is you, right? Because you don't want to own that. So there's all the unconscious stuff as well, like, because you might, I suppose that's our idea of ourselves, isn't it? It's like you think you're kind of nice, but people find you like pain in the ass or something. Well, that's that's probably you too. So yeah, so it's the unconscious stuff as well, is like, well, I suppose it's making it me. But yeah, the thought, I think, is the most tricky to get beyond, because it seems so absolutely you before awakening, and it can be seen in the kind of experience that it's just happening spontaneously, and that's kind of almost disconcerting, because it's like, well, what am I then? You know, I kind of had that, you know, and then before there was a sort of like the awakening to emptiness, but it was just seeing that wasn't me, and but not knowing anything about non-duality and no physical, like I just couldn't contextualize that. It's very odd, just being nothing, floating about, like, like just not even floating about. But yeah, I think it's at the heart of it. It's so convincing because it seemed to be self-generated. Because before I had that experience of seeing through the thought, like that was seen through, I remember walking around the cemetery and I was kind of amplifying my thought, you know, and it's like, fuck is that? What the fuck is that? You know, and then I was just seemed to just, I don't know, I became aware that the physical wasn't there. Seemed to flag up later in the week or another time, you know, but it seemed so ultimately pathological at the time, even though it was easier because it was just restful. And that's the end of desire. That was the end of desire for me in the normal sense. You know, that kind of, well, maybe in my case, sort of love of drama, love of intrigue, and all that kind of fell away in that.
But yeah, I don't, I'm not big on the whole idea of getting rid of a me.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. So
Is that because there's not one to begin with?
yes, it's because there's not one to begin with, and it's just seen, you know, I just see it as like, it's just this current expression, this immediacy of what's being experienced and expressed, and you know, that's who I am. But it's from moment to moment, it's might not be the same, you know, it's just there's no solidity to it. There's no actuality to it. It's just a thought, it's just the words coming out, it's just the feelings being felt,
Mm.
you know.
Mm.
But there's no, I don't know. I just saw through that the me as a decider, as the voice in the head, the ghost in the machine. that was seen through, so there's no actual me anywhere here. But yeah, like somebody's just said, all these different me's. Of course. It's not real, you know. It's been said that which is real never changes. So nothing's real because everything changes. But it's a funny idea, like if we believe the ego is like a real thing, and like I'm gonna get rid of my ego. And that's as I think Alan Watts said, the biggest ego trip of all.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna be egoless. I'm gonna be selfless. I'm gonna be a self that doesn't have a self. You know, an ego that doesn't have an ego.
I mean, dreams obviously is the unconscious, but they can be a little less evolved. Because last night I was yelling at God, asking him what to do. I had a dream. What am I going to do? So, you go, it's not very non-dual, is it?
Maybe you were appealing to the ultimate ego. Hey, God, come on down. We're having a Zoom.
Well, that's why there's no enlightened people.
Mm,
There's no one to own this, to claim it. And there's really nothing to have.
nothing to trade for.
Like, who owns this apparent experience? And is it who's making it happen, and who's it happening to? I just don't see any of that. It just seems to be arising and falling, arising and falling.
Forever.
Forever. Was that exhaustion in that forever? Or was it?
Well, I don't know. It feels like that here. Like, but
Yeah.
I just don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing if it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you think it ends?
No.
Do you not? Okay. So you don't believe in death and
Well, I don't have knowledge about it.
yeah.
So my open-ended, because phenomenologically, like when you talk about, I think last week or some other time you were talking about multidimensional experiences.
Oh yeah.
So it's hard to believe in death if I've seen worlds I've never seen in this universe.
Have you seen worlds?
Yeah, like in the dream state, I've seen and visited places that just feel galactically other.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I just go, look, whatever I am, I don't get to know. I don't know about death. I don't know about birth either, et cetera, et cetera. So,
But are those dreams, is it a different state to waking state, or do they have a different
yeah,
in other dreams? Okay.
yeah, like waking state feels very like this is waking state. There's a density to it, right? Like I can't put my hand through things. Whereas in dreaming state, I can breathe underwater, I can fly, I can walk through walls, I can move things with my mind, etc.
In normal dreams, not lucid dreams, like normal dreams?
No, in normal dreams, yeah.
Oh, okay. Right.
And then So then there's just been visitations in other places that just don't have any correlation to waking state.
Different
So
beings.
it leaves the death question open for me.
Can I ask, were they different beings then, like like supernatural kind of beings, or?
I would imagine so. I don't know how to think about it, because we don't have a relationship with that. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine they were entities that exist in some plane, like DMT elves exist in some plane.
Okay.
And who knows what they are, or where they're coming from, or what their worlds are like, or et cetera, like if they're all just non-player characters, like if they're just NPCs of my own hallucinatory brain, that's still pretty amazing.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I don't know if do you think it ends? I mean, do you think there's I can't imagine a culmination of any kind.
It makes
Well,
sense.
did it start?
Well, do we arrive? Like, right, that's a good question too. Did it ever start? But is there arriving ever? It doesn't feel like arriving and departing are real phenomena.
Well, in the sense of a normal arriving, maybe. I mean, as an arriving into this particular life form, like that kind of makes sense, maybe.
Hmm.
I don't want to come back though. I mean, I don't know. I do and I don't. It depends what, like. I don't know. Maybe there's a job in the other side. Like, I don't have to come back into this earthly thing. I just don't fancy that. It's too fraught. It's just too fraught. Too much uncertainty. Nothing,
So you'd prefer to be God?
I don't know. Maybe a guide, a spirit guide, something like that. I don't know.
Oh yeah, Krishna's flute.
Yeah, it's fine. Krishna's flute. I'll do.
Chet raises his hand. Jump right in, Chet.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you guys, does it seem strange to you that you can't slide back from an awakening or a seeing of oneness? Like, why? You never seem to hear about anyone doing that. Is it possible? Why does it never happen if it never happens? And is it possible?
I call that a glimpse a lot when people kind of get a little taste and slip back.
But for example, do you think it could happen to you guys? Because you seem to have had quite a long-term, like it's been going on for a long time. Do you think you could slip back into that pre-awakened state where you're like an ego and identifying with the self? And I suspect the answer is no, but I don't know why it's impossible.
Well, you've heard the whole Santa Claus thing, I'm sure. It's just kind of like seeing Santa Claus isn't real and somebody dressed up in a costume. And then you just always see Santa Claus as some guy dressed up in a costume. It's not a great analogy, but I don't know. And plus, there's the fact that if there is such a thing as a sense of self, I don't know who's going to have that sense of self. Does it just reside in the body? Like where does it? So I guess it's a sense that lives in the body, and it's a false sense. That's why it's called an illusion. So can the illusion come back? Can you see Santa as real after you know it's your dad?
Yeah.
I mean,
don't
I
know.
have heard of cases of that. I mean, like I have heard of, in one-to-ones and other people, like have said about that, like, but I don't know what to make of that. And the thought of it coming back, I think after awakening, I've heard of people being a little bit afraid that it might come back. You know, I don't know, maybe it could. The thought of it is pretty terrifying. I don't want to think about it. But yeah, hopefully, like Walter says, once it's been seen through, it's been seen through. I hope not.
I'm sorry I mentioned it. I didn't mean to terrify anyone.
I feel like, been awake tonight. No, yeah, it seems like different because I had a glimpse before, like years and years ago, but it didn't seem, I don't know. Well, I didn't know what it was really, but yeah, the constriction, I don't know whether it was gone or not, to be honest. At the time, it was just kind of bliss and perfection and stuff. But yeah, constriction certainly came back to mind 24/7, terror, all the rest of it, which is kind of annoying.
And my glimpse was more like a oneness experience. What I felt at one with I remember it was like I could see everybody was having the same thoughts and the same experiences and the same, I just felt this connection with all beings, but it was still me feeling connected.
Mm.
It was still an experience of oneness. But there was still someone here enjoying being at one with everyone else. So it was a little different. Like I definitely, like I was saying earlier, claiming it and all that stuff. I felt like I had a oneness experience.
Did you try and chase after that again, Walter? After that glimpse?
No, I didn't chase after it. I just sort of, I guess, embodied that or incorporated that, or just, it was freeing to almost I felt like I had a peek in everyone's minds, and then we're all sort of got the same, we're all mulling over the same kind of stuff, or the same in general fears, doubts, and insecurities. And, it was reassuring, it was comforting. But it wasn't the same, which is even not being comforted, being depressed, being, all of it is this undescribable expression of something unknowable. If it's even that, if anything's even happening at all. But it's certainly not happening the way that it's being interpreted. So no one knows. No one knows what's happening, if anything's happening. That's why I say nothing ever happened. So yeah, it's not about a personal oneness experience.
It's
Well,
not.
well, we're at 3:30. So my time, of course. It's an hour and a half of this meeting. So thank you very much, everybody. If there's any last questions, we can take it. Otherwise, we'll not see you next week. I can't, I'll post something on my channel about it, but there's some kind of podcast I'm doing, Course in Miracles related podcast at the same time, same day. So I can't do this meeting. So we're gonna cancel this meeting next week. But after that, we will resume our weekly, not just this meetings. And I thank everybody for coming. You want to say anything, Don?
Oh, no, just thanks for coming. It's good fun. It'll be
Yes.
a bit later next time, 8 o'clock here. I mean,
Oh, right. Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, because of the time change, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time is going to be an hour later, I guess, if that makes any sense. If you're not changing your clocks as well. So just be mindful of that. Well, I guess we won't be, I guess it's Eastern Daylight Time. I don't even know these things. 2 o'clock Eastern EDT, EST. Okay, something like that. But I'll post about it, and yeah, just be aware of the time change coming up. And thank you very much. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
yeah, bye.
Goodbye, everybody.